I'm Mary Karr.
I'm Christopher Robinson.
And this is Poetry Fix.
Today we have Robert Frost's poem, Once by the Pacific.
He's another dead white guy. You know, people think of Frost as that apples stopping by the woods on a snowy evening, grandpa kind of guy. Not really how Frost was.
Total asshole.
Complete badass. He was like the Gordon Ramsay of American poetry. He was really a badass. So, and he's cynical bastard. Dark.
Oh, yeah.
Dark. I've been one acquainted with the night. I've walked out in rain and back in rain. I've outwalked the furthest human light.
And Frost is a guy that's very, very accessible. Most of his poems seem very easy to grasp on the surface, but I think he's really one of the most complex poets there is. And rather than a sort of surface density and obscurity, there's a complexity of meaning that is below the surface of poems that seem fairly easy to understand.
Yeah, the surface of the poem is very clear, but it rewards study, as the British would say. So this is Once by the Pacific, and you see this image of kind of the absent god very early in the poem. Once by the Pacific by Robert Frost. The shattered water made a misty din, great waves looked over others coming in, and thought of doing something to the shore that water never did to land before. The clouds were low and hairy in the skies like locks blown forward in the gleam of eyes. You could not tell, and yet it looked as if the shore was lucky in being backed by cliff, the cliff in being backed by continent. It looked as if a night of dark intent was coming. And not only a night, an age. Someone had better be prepared for rage. There would be more than ocean water broken before God's last put out the light was spoken.
It should be noted that this is sort of a sonnet. It's 14 lines. It's written in couplets rather than a typical sonnet rhyme scheme.
Right. Din and you know, broken and spoken, age and rage.
But it keeps to sort of the idea of the sonnet as an octet in the sense that it sort of has a volta.
8 lines and 6 lines, and then there's a little jump after the 8th line, because he's sort of describing the landscape for the first 8 lines, you know, the water and the clouds. I love the clouds are low and hairy in the skies, with locks blown forward in the gleam of eyes, almost like those scary Zeus pictures, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, right?
The thing that really makes this poem...
I was actually thinking, or like Donald Trump, occurred to me.
This was really about Trump.
It's about Donald Trump.
Blown forward in the gleam of eyes.
Right, that's right.
Frost is a master of pentameter. There's a very regular rhythm that's set up in the beginning of this poem. The shattered water made a misty din. But then he breaks that pattern in specific places. The very next line, great waves, 2 stresses in a row. And you know that something is unsettling here. It's not going to be a calm, rolling rhythm all the way throughout.
Yeah, because that's like a spondee, and real spondees, where they have 2 stresses right in a row. English, very hard to do. Yeah. Very hard to do.
Or even like locks blown forward.
Right.
4 stresses in a row. They're 2 spondees.
But yeah, and what is happening in this poem, he describes the landscape, and then after the volta in the sonnet, it looked as if a night of dark intent were coming. It's a very dark poem, not only in art of an age. Someone had better be prepared for rage. You know, there would be more than ocean water broken when God's last put out the light was spoken. It also reminds me of that other great poem about the sea of his, not the shattered water made a misty din. The people along the sand all turn and look one way. They turn their backs to the land, look at the sea all day. And it ends, they cannot look out far. They cannot look in deep. But when was that ever a mar to any watch they keep? It's really like the curse of the bad fairy, as old Robert Frost. So I'm Mary Karr.
I'm Christopher Robinson.
This was Poetry Fix. The shattered water made a misty din. Great waves looked over others coming in, and thought of doing something to the shore water never did to land before. The clouds were low and hairy in the skies. I think of Donald Trump.